we'd just like to add a small trigger warning for sexual assault, abuse, and grooming. And if these things trigger you, please just skip this episode. We do appreciate your support, but taking care of yourself is more important. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody.
Last week, we had Stanley Ziv, and today we have Luke Fletcher here to discuss the complexities on media and music.
We will also discuss the experience and opinions on music you gather after working in sound for so long.
Enjoy.
Cowboys Incorporated. Here we have Luke Fletcher, sound and lighting technician.
ITT teacher.
And opinionated music listener.
Hi, how's it going? I'm so glad to be here. This is so cool.
I'm excited.
Thanks for having me on the show. Really.
Of course. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, of course. How could I miss it?
Really easily.
Yeah. Last time people were late.
Yeah.
Oh well, no. I set a reminder on my phone because if I don't, I would have forgotten.
Fair. Okay, I guess we just kind of go straight into it. So I've spoken to you about this before, but as consumers and like people listening to music, do we have a responsibility to hold artists accountable?
Absolutely.
Why?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've heard the argument before, where the idea of separation of the art from the artist, and for a while I maybe believed that in a space of denial. I don't know if you know the Lost Prophets. I'm dating myself here. So Lost Prophets, because I don't have them on the list, but they were a really great band when I was in high school. Everyone listened to them, great music. But then, and I'm not going to go into the details. I'm going to try my best to avoid details as much as possible. But like the vocalist, and if you really want to get sad on Google, you can look him up. He did some really questionable things. At the time, I said, well, what about the rest of the band? What about them? They contributed to the music. How can you write off all of Lost Prophets just because of what one person did? But the reality is that person is the frontman, the singer is the voice of the Lost Prophets. So when you listen to it back, I don't know, maybe other people can dissociate from it, but I can't. I hear that person and I'm thinking constantly about what they did. Another good example is Michael Jackson. I cannot, and I'll talk about him in great detail later. I cannot listen to Michael Jackson without thinking of Leaving Neverland. I cannot separate the two. And I think it depends on the person. If you're willing to dissociate and you want to dissociate, you will be able to dissociate. But I can't. So whether or not that answers the question on whether or not we have an obligation, I don't know. But
so it's really dependent on the person. Because
Yeah.
I personally,
and what your values and morals are.
because you seem to struggle with listening to music when you know one of the members, whether it's a band or just the artists themselves, have done something wrong. I can just forget about it because I tend to not listen to what the media is saying, and I just enjoy the music.
Yeah.
Do you think that the morals of it, if you do listen to them, is bad? And
Again, that's between you and God. You as a listener and God, and where your morals fall in that camp. I can speak for myself and say that I struggle to listen to music that I know was made by problematic people, but others don't. Others don't seem to have that same issue. But then again, we'd have to do a proper analysis of my morals versus their morals and see where we stand on other issues like, sexism and racism and, where do we fall on all of these things.
Should we investigate or for any media that we consume, should we double check that the artist, or even if it's just a content creator, should we investigate whether they're problematic or not so that we can stay away from it?
That's a good question. You see, so for somebody like, I'm trying to remember their name, not Ray Charles.
James Charles.
James Charles. There we go.
I had no idea what you were talking about.
I appreciate it.
I thought you were trying to say Rachel.
So if you're around on YouTube, you know what's going. You know what's happened. You know about the grooming charges. You know about all
His
of that
brothers
stuff.
cut him off.
Yeah, and
Crazy.
you know the Theorist network of channels.
Yeah.
Like food theory,
Yes, game
film
theory, I
theory,
know
game
game
theory,
I'm not gonna lie.
style
Where
theory.
I get my information on this is Curtis Connor.
Okay, that's fair
Love
enough.
him.
Me too.
Yeah.
So,
I have no idea who that is.
That's sad.
worth looking into, and hopefully not problematic. Let's find out though. So, if you're in the sphere, you know what's going down. Just to finish the thought, a little bit of a side thought, but the Theory channels recently released a video about what's his name?
James Charles.
James Charles recently released a video about him where like in the cold open they kind of like say, well, but hasn't he been cancelled like 3 times? And
He's
then
been
they do like
cancelled
a
so many
Yeah.
times.
and then they do like a
And then
like
he
a
does
half-hearted. Sorry, go ahead.
A huge apology video. Oh,
Huge.
Well,
I
yeah,
remember
and they
them
even
all.
and they even comment on that. They
Yeah.
say in the thing, well, but should we be doing this? Oh, well, he seems to have made an apology video, and the internet at large seems to have forgiven him. So whatever. And then they just proceed to dedicate like an entire 15 minutes to advertising James
Yeah.
Charles.
Yeah.
And I don't. This came out a couple of days ago, and I was really surprised about that because I thought that as a network they may be, and I hate using this term because of the connotation that it's been adopted by conservatives, but woke. Like you would expect them to be a little bit
yeah.
more woke than that.
Yeah.
But they're not. But also, if you go back on the theory channels, you'll see that MatPat has a whole bunch. Like, there's a long list of examples that they just don't care. And I mean, I know they're from like the red state, so we don't know how deep that goes. But anyways, so what was the question again? Let's go back to the question.
Should we investigate every piece?
Yeah.
Immediately?
So I guess like if you know about it, then I guess it's up to you whether or not you have the moral responsibility. But I think you'd be exhausting yourself looking up every little thing. And then also there's somebody's blog,
Yeah.
you know, that's like buried on page 3 where somebody comes clean about this thing that happened to them. And that's not going to always be on the first results of the search page. So you can look and do a courtesy search to see if you find anything, but you don't know how deep it actually goes. And, you know, until you actually know about it.
Yeah.
But I think I guess that's maybe my answer is once you know about it, you have an obligation. In my opinion, you have an obligation to make a choice about whether or not you want to engage with it. But I also think that it's you're going to run yourself ragged trying to look for things about anything, and to do the research necessary to find the truth is too much.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you go?
You can
Okay.
go.
It kind of leads into the next question I had in a way, which is like by saying they're buried on like the third search result is when looking at people today like James Charles or of the past, like past bands, what
Yeah, we could think of a few
perspectives-
more.
Yeah, there's a lot.
You basically like the amount of like actually when I was putting together, I have a list ready to go at some point about all of the musicians
That are-
like common
there's-
musicians that have problems that you should be aware
It's
of.
kind of harder to list ones that aren't.
Yeah, and when I was doing the research, I actually made a decision to cut, because you said specifically about musicians, I cut out everybody else that was on the list, but the amount of people that you know that have got grooming charges or assault charges or some kind of allegation against them is shocking. It's jaw-dropping. It's jaw-dropping. It's
But
jaw-dropping.
The thing
What?
is,
Ray Charles is
sorry.
just the one I could think. Ray
Ray
Charles.
Charles.
No, not
This
Ray
is his
Charles.
new
James
name.
Charles. It tells you how much I think about these people.
But to
Like,
be honest, I've seen content creators who have been accused of being grooming children, only for like whether it's like kids my age or
a lot
younger.
of YouTubers.
Yeah, they've been charged of that, but in reality, it was just false charges, and that they're doing.
Oh
it.
yeah,
like,
the
what-
thing
I
is, there's
hate it when
always
people do
always
that.
false charges.
Perspectives.
There is a possibility of false charges, but and I should probably have these stats prepared, but I would love to see a proper analysis of the number of charges placed against people and how many times statistically it was a false charge, because you'd probably find that even
It's a
though
lot
they do
less.
exist, it's a very low percentage compared to the amount of actual real charges. And even then, it's so easy for somebody to say, no, I didn't.
Yeah, when
And
there's a
then
lot
that's
of
just
proof.
that is
Yeah.
enough of a disputable action. Like the people who like there are entire communities built around proving Michael Jackson's innocence, because there are people that just cannot accept what he did, and there are people that just need to, for their own sake, disassociate from what he did.
So what perspectives and like portrayals of people do we trust? Because in like, especially, and it obviously is more complicated, but especially as like women in the industry or people of color, like it is kind of working against you. And what portrayals do you trust when people are saying things about people and they might be out of good conscience, but sometimes it's like, how do you trust that that's actually because they have done that, or because someone's trying to search for something there that isn't there?
Well, I don't know if this is the right answer to the question, but
Is it really one? So,
well,
yeah.
just ask that again. Just sorry,
What
we'll cut around
perspectives-
this. No,
I'll
I'm just
say it,
joking.
yeah. What perspectives and portrayals of people do we trust on the internet?
Should you trust the ones that you've grown up knowing, say, for instance, an artist you've known
Yeah.
since childhood, or do you trust this new thing that just came to light?
Like,
What
as
do
a
you
more
do?
leftist,
So-
I'm going to get those results when I'm
Look.
searching for things.
Look, so I know enough people that are survivors of abuse or assault to know that we need to, in 100% of cases, believe a victim. If somebody states that they're a victim of assault or any form of abuse whatsoever, we need to believe them, because if we open up a conversation where a person, we say, well, maybe they didn't, like in immense amounts of assaults that actually occur, are we really going to say, well, innocent until proven guilty for those? We can't. It's too damaging to the survivor. So if somebody is a survivor and they say that they're I hate to use the term victim, but a survivor, we have to believe them. And if things stop adding up, then we also have to keep an open mind and say, well, maybe it's possible that they're lying, but as a fact, as like a base level, we have to believe victims. Because if we start just not believing, if we start off by saying, oh, well, maybe you're not telling the truth, we're going to be doing that victim a disservice.
The impact that they'll have of like not being believed is bigger than the impact
exactly.
Other person
And there's nothing worse than having something happen to you, having the courage to come up and speak up about it, and then having people tell you that they don't believe you. Can you imagine anything worse? Well, okay, I can imagine a lot of things worse, but in the specific example of, it's a horrible thing to do to somebody based on the possibility that they're lying. And I mean, again, there are some people with mental health issues that may lie about these things. You could also bring into fact, things like schizophrenia, where,
I'm more saying like not about victims lying about like assault cases, but more in the sense of like someone, I don't know how to give a good example of this, but like you can look at people of the past and people say, oh, he was a really bad guy, and you kind of have no way to prove that. Or like even if they are, it's like things that they've done where it's like, oh, that is sketchy, but like, is it? I don't know. Like you're saying this and a lot of people are agreeing, but then again, everyone's going to search for like what they agree with and make arguments.
It comes down to the evidence. And again, it's like, there's this, I always say there's two kinds of people. There's people that want to seek the truth and want to assess results and want to come to a conclusion for themselves about what is the truth of a situation given the evidence. And then there are people that just want to be right. And whichever camp you're in, we're going to call it the left or the right, whichever camp you're in, you're going to think that you're the one that's seeking the truth and that the other people are the ones that are just coming to conclusions. But I feel strongly that as long as you are taking it, again, like a science-based approach, and you are looking at the evidence for what it is, and you are making sure that you are being, what's the word, that you're not bringing your own bias into
critical
it. Yeah, exactly. You are looking at the evidence for what it is in isolation. You're not letting any preconceived biases come into it. You can, in good faith, make your own conclusions about whether or not something is true. But again, you can't do that if you're disregarding evidence. Yeah. You have to see the evidence for what it is. You have to accept it for what it is. Like, for example, the Michael Jackson situation. There is a documentary called Leaving Neverland, which is, if you have a sensitive stomach, I wouldn't recommend watching it. But everybody else, it's actually it's a very important view, and I'm not sure how long it is. I think it's like a 3-part documentary, and it's long. It's like 4 hours long or something like that, and it's basically just the two boys from the two court cases. Two separate court cases, mind you. There was one, and then was exonerated, and then there was another one. And then, I can't remember the exact specifics of the results, but both those boys, and I call them boys because even though they're men now, you can see how they've been affected. You can see how they've been affected. And when you watch that documentary and you hear them tell the story and you hear their accounts of it and you see that there are no holes in that story and they are very clearly deeply affected by what happened to them. And you also then take into account, there's this great video. I wish I had an aux cable so I could plug it in just to play the audio, but there's this documentary that was done at some point about Michael Jackson, where this famous interviewer, who's well known for doing these sting pieces, got him into an interview and asked him some questions. I'm going to try paraphrase the conversation, but he said something to the effect
link,
of,
we can link it at the end as well.
I will. The thing I'm going to send you is a comedy video that's cut around it, where it's Michael Jackson's PR team trying to prepare him for an interview and then him just failing miserably. Yeah. But the interviewer asks at some point, he's like, but don't you think it's inappropriate to share a bed with a child, and he's like, no, it's why would that be inappropriate? Like, or to share a bedroom, it's like, no, why would that be inappropriate? Like they're sleeping in the bed, I'm on the floor in a sleeping bag, like there's nothing wrong about that. And the guy says, well, but have you ever slept in the bed with any children? And Michael Jackson says, oh yeah, I've slept in the bed with lots of children.
It's like, this isn't.
And then he realizes,
I'm not bad.
like he
I do
said,
that in other cases.
he's saying that in this one specific instance, he did not sleep in the bed with the child, and that he was sorry if this is triggering to anybody. We should have done a trigger warning at the
We'll
start.
add it in.
Yeah. But like he's saying that he's in the sleeping bag, and then he asks me, well, have you done this with any other kids? He's like, oh yeah, no, I've slept in the bed with lots of children. And then he realizes what he said, and he's like, God knows in my heart that I love children, and he just starts to dig. He just digs his grave, because he's like, I get them in, we put the fire on, I get them a little milk and cookies.
It's like
and
the same apology video
just,
of the guy who plays Kramer in, I was talking about it yesterday, in Seinfeld. I can't remember what he said, but it was really not good.
Yeah, he
got pulled onto an interview to apologize, and every single sentence made it so much worse. Like watching it, you can't actually help but laugh, because every sentence he just says something. It's like, you're really just like, no media training, nothing. Like every sentence is just like, okay, I didn't even think it was that bad at first, but now you've just like, basically you're like,
you've made it so much worse for yourself,
I feel like
buddy.
You're like telling me things I don't need to know.
It's more often than not when people try to apologize in quotation marks for the things they've done. They end up just digging a hole deeper.
Because they're not actually apologizing. It's about,
they could not care less. It's more about what the media cares about them, because they want an income. Is the limited impact that we make worth the sacrifice?
And what do you mean?
In the sense of, we put in the effort to like show that this person did wrong. Is it worth putting yourself out there?
Like boycotting them when you know, like Kanye West, not listening to his music, but you know that it's not going to affect him with the money.
Yeah, no,
he's still going to get that much money. He's still going to be fine. Even if everyone stops listening, he'll be fine.
I think it's on a personal level. It's between you and God. It's between you and God at the end of the day. Like, what do you, or you and karma, or however you want to view your moral place in this universe, and why you keep strong moral values, whatever your motivation is, it's between you and that force. Like, yes, you're absolutely right. It's not making any difference to them whatsoever. I mean, like, the fact that I don't listen to Michael Jackson doesn't change the fact that I'm constantly hearing Michael Jackson being played. But I also know that it's, again, I have that obligation to, and I never bring it up because it's like, it's impolite. Like, I'm just going to be honest here. I wish I could bring it up all the time. Like, just tell everybody, hey, do you know what Jimmy Page did? Like, I wish I could, because it is, I feel like it is actually important that we talk about these things because they are so popular. But at the end of the day, it's not going to make any difference. It's only when somebody brings up they're playing Michael Jackson. That's awkward, that the conversation starts, and then you can actually have a conversation about it because you didn't instigate it. But I would say, to answer the question, no, it doesn't make any difference, but it makes an individual difference to you and the people around you. And it also makes a stand for what we should be keeping as strong morals around these things, because it's like, if we hear what these people do and we start to make excuses for them because they're famous, where do we draw the line? It's like, what is it about them that's famous? Sorry. What is it about them that is famous that makes them higher up or better than people in our own lives that may commit these same crimes that would be seen differently? Also, I remember what I was going to say just now. You have to remember that for some people, listening to music is a deeply emotional, visceral experience. For some people, they're just, as you say, consumers who just listen to music in the background. They just need something to distract them from the thoughts. But then, like, people like myself, who music goes deeper than that. Music does go deeper than that for some people. So some people, it's not going to be a big deal, but for others who are really emotionally invested in music, it is going to be a bigger deal. It's just something as well to consider there.
Your opinion on personas in music?
It's necessary for marketing. Music. You don't just make music and make it big. It's a holistic process to make it in the music industry, and part of that is an acting.
If your persona is like horrible.
Oh no, if
like
your persona,
I have a persona and my persona is homophobic and will say slurs. But
no, then that's unacceptable.
It's like a persona though. It's
not
you
see,
me.
That's the thing is you can, like Alice Cooper, for example. Now, maybe not a great example, but Alice Cooper Alice Cooper is a character that the guy who plays Alice Cooper, I can't remember his name now, but he he plays the persona of Alice Cooper, and in interviews he is not Alice Cooper. On stage he's Alice Cooper, but in interviews he is his normal person. You can see that he is that person. So it's just a stage persona. So I think personas like that should be on the stage. You know, when you go out, you're going to be that person. On an album, when you're in a studio, when you're making music, part of that persona needs to carry into the music. But in interviews, you have a responsibility to be a strong, like moral, what's the word? Like a role model. Yeah, you have to be a strong role model for the people that are listening to your music. And again, that you need to make sure that your values as an artist are still reflected by your persona, and that you're not basically making money off being a horrible person to people.
Yeah,
you know, like if your persona is being anti-Semitic, what's your deal?
Yeah.
Find another way to make money. Like find another aspect of your personality that will gain engagement, you know?
Yeah. So basically, what artists should be doing that they aren't is when their persona on stage is a shitty person, during interviews, when asked about the music that's usually performed by that persona, they should say, oh, my persona is, and how they would react. You would never link it back to yourself, so that the audience themselves can know that
isn't harmed by it.
Isn't harmed, because the real artist doesn't think that. It's just the persona they put on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same as what's his name, that the main actor in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I can't remember.
Does he suck in real life?
So no, that's the thing.
Okay.
No. His character, I can't remember his character's name now.
Oh yeah, it's
but
like the worst
his character and all of the other characters in It's Always Sunny just went with their normal first names. Like Charlie Day is Charlie in the
so
show.
The guy who is not like
but the guy who's
pedophile isn't a pedophile in real life.
The guy who is the womanizer, that main character specifically chose a character name that wasn't his name so that he wouldn't be associated as a person with the actions of his character in It's Always Sunny.
The word womanizer is funny because the one episode he literally just
the
goes out
Dennis.
With a high school student. And then there's a whole thing about them all going out with the high school students.
But you see, in the thing about that episode, the thing that they're trying to raise awareness about is the line between 17 and 18.
Yeah,
and
no, I think I get the point of it. It's a show,
18,
but it's...
She is 18, and it's like there's even a
so,
point where the other two find out that she's 18, and they go immediately from being, oh, that's so disgusting, to, oh, you lucky SOB. Like yeah,
in
you know,
the same
like
episode,
it's
they
like
all go and then those two friends start talking to the actual children there. And it's
Always Sunny.
It's entertaining.
It's Always Sunny has aged well. From what I've seen,
it's
as long as you
good,
remember that you're not watching a show for those, you're not watching it to support the people. You're watching the show to see how horrible they are.
Exactly,
and that's
It's still entertaining. It's like, okay, you're not like a horrible person. This is just funny. Oh, and okay, that's funny. Right, I'm just saying that it is. And then this is kind of very separate from that, but is similar. How do you want to ask this? I feel like I've asked all the questions.
Yeah. Okay, I can ask it. How do you go about, like you said earlier in this interview, that you can't separate the art from the artist, but at what type of art? Like, there has to be some type of music that you separate from the artist because you simply like the art.
Look, when I collect records.
Yeah.
And I nearly had my entire Bowie collection nailed down. Like, not all of them, because there's like some on either. It basically, from like Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust all the way through to, let's say, like the like the
he's so problematic. You don't want that.
You don't
want that.
But neither do you. That's the thing.
I will take it off your hands.
But I think I have
everything
to the end of the. I have everything to the end of the Berlin era. I think I'm missing Changes, and what's the one where he's like this on the cover?
Oh gosh. Oh, I know.
You know the one.
No,
yeah, so I'm missing that one as well.
So you don't want them.
You don't want them.
Well, no. Look, what I was going to say is I was really into Bowie, and then when I found out issues of Bowie, I haven't put those records on since. And Golden Years is one of my
so hard to find.
absolute.
I'm just kind
It's
of
actually
sitting
not.
here.
No, it's actually not. I spent years looking for it, and I eventually settled on. Well, okay, I didn't settle. I found one that had like a trimmed edge on the cover, so it's like not a perfect
Oh,
cover,
I don't care
but the
about
media
that.
is
I haven't
perfect.
found any.
But since then, I've seen maybe 5 or 6 of them at fairs. There's this one
What?
guy. I won't name names. But there's this one guy I know who every time he sees one at a fair, he buys them because they're good to have around. That was his exact phrase. When he saw one in another dude's collection, he grabbed it, paid him for it. It was like, it's just good to have these around, because everyone
Yeah,
always wants them.
that's-
But again, like I have been like I'm embarrassed by how much of a David Bowie fan I was before I found out.
Yeah,
And-
that's
and
so
I-
weird.
and I
I
haven't-
wonder what he's. I don't know who would ever listen to him. Gosh.
No, I know. And the thing is, that's the annoying thing, is that he made such good music. And again, David Bowie didn't make all the music. David Bowie was a master of bringing together session musicians, same way Steely Dan does. Again, a band with no problems. Like what Steely Dan did, where they would choose session musicians that they loved, and then they would bring them together specifically for the sound of one song. And David Bowie did that perfectly. So again, there's so many people on those albums, like Aladdin Sane, the piano solo in Aladdin Sane. That artist, I actually got into his solo work. Okay, and I can't remember his name, but I got into his solo work a couple of years ago as a result of that piece, and fortunately was able to find that. And it's like Aladdin Sane, you could say the reason why it is such a banger is because of that piano solo in the middle. That's why
The
it is
fact
a
that you
popular
can
song.
Never listen to like Life on Mars.
No,
I
that's not
feel
even
so
no. Like I
bad
say,
for you.
Golden Years is the real issue. Like that song is not song. That album is really, really good. And yeah, I just haven't been able to put it on.
Oh,
And
well,
I'm sure that if I
out
did,
of like kindness, if you want someone to take it off your hands, like I know
look,
a few people.
they're really valuable. So I'm kind of holding. I'm kind of holding on to them. I don't know why.
I'll give you the electric
I don't know
light.
why
I'll
I'm
give you
holding
my
on.
electric light.
No, you
orchestra
okay?
one.
No,
I don't want that.
no. Now we can talk about a trade. Okay, now we can. Yes, we can talk
I'll give
about
you
it.
that.
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
need it.
Yeah, deal. Okay, but yeah, I don't know if I answered the question or not.
I think you did.
I don't remember what it was, so I'm gonna say yes.
What was the question?
I think separating art from the artist.
Oh, yeah.
Like again, I just told you a whole story about how I just cannot listen to. Yeah, I don't know. It's just I can't do it. And again, it's like maybe it's because it hits close to home, because there are people in my life who I'm very, very close with, multiple people, which just shows you the extent of this issue and why I'm so clued up about it. Women in my life who are survivors in various capacities, child abuse survivors, later years assault survivors. So for me, these issues hit close to home, and I just can't disassociate from them.
Fair.
Yeah, but again, that's a situation where I'm isolated. That I know these people, I know their struggles, I know what they go through, and I know the trauma and damage that it's caused them. So for me, it's a lot harder to do that than somebody who is privileged enough to not know anybody in their life, or to not have accepted that anybody in their life has been
Can
assaulted.
go through that, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of women, no, it's very separate. But as someone in like IT and you can say the music industry, like you don't make music, but you work with music.
Yeah.
Coming in and
Let's-
being like,
let's say sound.
I'm just looking at the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't worry, just checking
Just
the sound
making
waves.
sure that
Um,
Yeah.
projecting.
No, I've been watching the levels this whole time.
I know, I can tell. You're like
I
earlier you were
geeked
just
out
like,
when I got in here and there was a lorry organ in the room. I was stoked. I was so happy.
yeah, that's a piano. No. Embarrassing. But being in like kind of this, did I say music? Oh, I said
Yes.
music, and you're just like, I said sound industry. I did not. There's like no women there other than
Oh,
like
yeah.
the actual artists.
Yeah,
How
it's
is that, like,
it's an all
that's-
boys club, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
It's an all boys club.
How is that like kind of? Yeah, I don't know what my question. It's just like there is a lack. That's what I wrote. I didn't write a question.
Lack of women in the musical and IT.
Conversation
Yeah,
piece.
but I think that's also a symptom of the fact that women have historically been excluded from all manner of conversations and all manner of industries. It's an issue going back further than the music industry. Like there's definitely the music industry has its own separate version of those issues.
It's interesting because there's so many
it's a
women in the
systemic
music
societal.
industry.
Yeah.
Like there's like not most of them, but there's like in the actual music, there's a lot of women, but in the like
There's a
behind
lot
the
of
scenes,
good female
there's-
artists.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good female artists
I'm gonna
out
say
there, but they're
again,
not
Fiona
as
Apple,
popular.
love her. I didn't say, not again. I said this earlier, not to you, so this is not again. You should listen to Fiona Apple. She's amazing. I love her, but she's a bit like hard to get into.
Yeah. I don't.
Dude, you got no female artists there.
No, I only
I mean,
Oh yeah,
like-
Taylor Swift. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan.
yeah, Swifty
Thank
here
you.
as well.
Thank
Yeah, no,
you.
how can you
Yeah.
not be? No.
Thank
Taylor
you.
Swift's
Yeah,
great.
no,
Great.
unless you know, like you've got some aspect of your ego tied up in what music you listen to, then you
Yeah,
can't
'cause-
accept good music for good music.
Exactly.
But Taylor Swift knows
is
what
so
she's
good.
doing.
Have you? And I think there's an album for everyone. Oh, you like folk? 2 albums. You like rap? Reputation. You like country? Debut.
I think it was 1989 was how she got me.
She's,
Yeah,
do
shake
you know
it
she has
off,
1989
shake it
Taylor's
off.
version out now
I
soon
will
in
listen to
October
that.
with
Yeah,
the new songs.
I'll listen to this.
With new
Yeah.
songs coming on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll get into that. Also, just while we hear Grace Jones, Linda Ronstadt, like there are some phenomenal musicians from the 70s, female
It's kind of
musicians
all
from the
the sev-
70s that are popular and well known.
70s music is so good, and you look at the men there, and it's like, oh, you've done the most horrendous things that anyone's ever done, and then here's this woman that you've done these horrendous things to, and they're so good. And it's just, obviously, that's very stereotyped and generalized. Like, there are obviously bands from the 70s that are mainly men and are good.
It was a man's game, being on stage with a guitar.
But, like,
As for men,
all the female artists from the past, not all of them, most of them are not really, they're less problematic. Have done less bad things.
look,
Please
we're
don't say that.
when-
Please
There
forgive
are
me.
No,
Don't tell me like Stevie Nicks is a horrible person.
no. Okay, so like, there's. Let's not get into the history of Fleetwood Mac. Let's not get.
Okay.
Well, that's a separate podcast
yeah, that's
for a
also
separate
that's like
day.
another hour long.
But well, again, it depends. What you consider the crimes that are victimless crimes, okay, or not? Because
Well,
like,
it depends what.
so no. But again, has not caused any damage to people,
Oh,
but
okay.
has caused a lot of damage to her nasal cavity.
Oh, okay, whatever.
Like,
Who cares?
like,
Who
and I mean,
cares?
just, and, I mean,
Everyone needs a little-
there
have
was
you
a
heard
lot
her
of
music?
like, there was a lot of like
Everybody.
intertwined relationships in Fleetwood Mac. It was
Oh,
a
yeah.
very like, and you see that there was hurt feels there. So again, like it depends on what
whatever.
you consider a crime and who you
Do it-
consider a victim in that situation. But no,
Ingest whatever you want.
When I was doing research for this, I was looking up my names. There was one artist. A modern artist who did come up recently, and I can't remember her name now.
Okay, her
'Cause-
name.
So it was
Wait.
literally one modern artist
I feel
who
like
is
we
a
can guess this. This
is
is when
a
we go through
gay
like a list of
artist.
all the people.
So look, is a gay artist? No, well, Lizzo as well, I guess. Now with
Lizzo
recently what's
sings- oh
come
my
up,
gosh,
but
yeah.
again,
Curtis
that's not an
Connor.
assault thing. That's
Yeah.
not like let's
Apparently,
keep
that
this
was
about
accused.
assault.
She was accused
Who?
of Lizzo, but then it was wrong. It
Okay,
wasn't
all right,
true.
well,
But we
so,
don't know
so,
really.
so this
It's
artist, and again,
complicated.
I'll try to get their name, but I probably won't be able to. But they, very recently, their best friend came out and said that a female best friend had been abused by this female artist
know
multiple
who this
times, had been
is.
sexually
Ooh.
abused, but not like a
Don't say
common name.
who like
Not
that.
like-
What
so,
information?
but that is the thing. In my research, I could find one woman,
Oh yeah, so
and
true.
it is one woman today in the Me Too movement that was called out for her actions.
I want a speed run of the negative bands now.
All right,
like
let's
the
go.
artists.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Okay, I've just got to get out the documents.
Oh,
That's right.
oh, yeah.
I made a Google Doc.
This,
So I'm just going to
okay.
start off talking about John Lennon. Okay. Now,
Okay,
John,
I was.
now,
I don't know why I looked
Okay,
shocked
okay.
then. I
Now-
was like, oh wait, yeah.
now, John Lennon, in one of these songs on what's that? Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. He brings out the lyric, "I used to be cruel to my woman. I kept her apart. I kept her alone and apart from the things that she loved. Or I beat her and kept her apart from the things that she loved."
yeah.
So he admits to beating her, and then the next line says, "Man, I was mean, but I'm changing my scene and I'm doing the best that I can." And that lyric was written during a period of reflection and growth in John Lennon's life. So Sgt. Pepper, that era of John Lennon's life, he was massively problematic. But then there came a point where he got into spiritualism and actually acknowledged what he had done wrong. You know, he went to India, did the whole Maharishi thing. And then there's the John Lennon after that fact that shows that men are capable of change. Okay,
Yeah.
men are capable
Everybody's
of being
capable.
one
Everyone is.
person.
If you educate yourself,
They're
you
capable
learn.
of acknowledging their issues and are capable of moving forward from it. And again, there's still issues with John Lennon after the fact. Like, you can still bring up issues with him. But he was at least cognizant and was willing to admit. So I just
Yeah.
want to start off with John Lennon. So now, before I go down there's like a pre-list and then there's the post list. But before I get into like the Bowie page, that aspect of
yeah.
the list. I have to talk quickly about Sable Starr and Laurie Maddox. I don't know if you are familiar
I
with.
know the names, and if you explain it, I'll probably
So,
love it.
so they were in the 70s. They referred to as the baby groupies of the 70s, and they were at the start of their groupie phase, respectively 13 and 14 years old, and they were very well known in the Californian 70s music scene. For their work as groupies, and
For their work as groupies,
well,
yeah.
I'm trying to find a polite way to say it.
yeah.
A polite way to say it. So, David Bowie is credited as by Laurie Maddox as the person who took her virginity, and when you hear her account of the story, it's very clear that it was coercion. And then there's
she's
also,
like 14
apart
as well,
from the
so-
anti-Semitic stuff, there's exactly, the statutory rape is a given for all of these. David Bowie also has a lot of other.
He's got like a long
It's not
list
just
behind
It's not just
him.
Laurie Maddox. There's a long history of David Bowie taking underage groupies into his hotel rooms. Not great. Jimmy Page is where it gets worse because Laurie Maddox. Now Sable Starr was like the original, and then Laurie was her friend. But Laurie Maddox was a model. And Jimmy Page saw her in a advert and said to one of his people, "Go get me her." And somebody literally went and abducted her. Like no words,
wow.
no words. Abducted her. Sorry for the trigger warning.
We'll add one at the beginning.
Abducted her. And took her back to the hotel room where she was presented to Jimmy Page. And I mean, when you're 14 and like, just for context, Jimmy Page was Led Zeppelin was the biggest band
For a
in
moment,
the world
when you
at
said
this
Jimmy
point.
Page for like 0.5 seconds, I just thought Jimi Hendrix. I was
No.
really scared.
So Jimi Hendrix, I've looked into extensively. There is no
thank God.
evidence.
Thank God.
There are
Okay.
allegations, but there is
Okay.
no evidence. There is evidence that he was verbally abusive. But there is no evidence that he was physically or sexually abusive to anybody.
What we can get. Okay. Take what you get.
And I like, again, and it's anytime somebody wants to bring up the "it was a different era" argument,
It doesn't excuse anything.
Yeah.
just stop. Just
Yeah,
stop.
just
Shut up.
don't.
Just shut up. It was not a different era. These things have always been wrong.
It's also
We've
like
known for a
different era.
long
This
time.
was the 70s, dude. It's like 30 years ago.
So
We're going from the 2013 thing.
So going back to Jimmy Page, so she was presented to him, and she obviously, starstruck. He was the not just the biggest band in the world, the lead guitarist, the best guitarist in the world at this point. Like the man who had been passed from Jimi Hendrix to Jimmy Page at this point. So that she was obviously there was a huge degree of manipulation into this, and years later she still looks back in interviews today saying, "Oh well, it was great. I got to watch the Beatles jam with." Mick Jagger and all of these things, but it's like
was it though?
was it though? Like
Like a
when
child.
what was it though? Like, I mean, I know, you got to hang out with the Beatles and Mick Jagger, but was that really worth the loss of your innocence and the manipulation that you suffered as? Because that's the thing, is these girls are being manipulated. So, Jimmy Page, not great. I think we can move on from Jimmy Page, but he kept her and his relationship a secret for years.
Which is
until
immediately
she was
like,
like
we're going to say
17.
it's a different era,
because
but he knew he had to keep it secret.
he knew he had to keep
Exactly.
it secret. He
So it's
knew
like you
he
can't
had to
even do a
keep it
different era
secret.
argument because you know it's wrong then.
Yeah. And when she was around 17, I think he dumped her or something like that, and it was just not great. Not a great look for Jimmy Page.
DiCaprio.
Yeah. Robert Plant, same era. Robert Plant is the front man of Led Zeppelin. Same
Everything's just
kid,
Led
same era.
Zeppelin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, Led
when
Zeppelin
Zeb's-
weren't great people. I again have Led Zeppelin 4 on vinyl. I cannot part with it because of When the Levee Breaks, because I have to own that on vinyl, but I can't remember the last time I listened to it.
So, if you get robbed at any point in time,
Look, there are records in my
not
collection
us.
I will miss, and there are records in my collection I will not miss. Let's leave it at that. Also, Iggy Pop. There's a song. I don't know if you know Iggy Pop. I don't know him very well, to be completely honest, because I only learned about him when I learned about the whole baby groupie thing. But he's got a song called "Look Away," where he, in the song "Look Away," openly admits to sexual intercourse with Sable Starr when she was 13. That's the first line of the song. Mick Jagger as well,
Yeah,
credited.
I don't know about
Now
him.
you can't have a band like the Rolling Stones where you're literally, and again, Exile on Main, if I had to get serious about my top 5 albums of all time, Exile on Main would be on the list. But Mick Jagger doesn't even. Well, you see, that's the thing. This is one of the ones I was reminded of when I was doing
Yeah.
the research. But yeah, Mick Jagger,
Sorry.
you can't have a band like the Rolling Stones singing about what they sing about and not expect there to be problems there. But
Yeah.
again, AC/DC, we were saying this just now, no
No,
issues
thank-
found with
absolutely.
AC/DC. Again, a
Genuinely,
band that
so
also
good.
writes
Oh, thank
nothing but
God.
songs about, and
I'm very
no
happy.
issues with them.
I'm happy
Absolutely. So
about
it just
that.
shows that it's not the band and the content, and the
depends.
persona, it's the person. It's
Yeah.
the person. So Mick Jagger, same situation with the baby groupies. So those are kind of like the people who are commonly known to have been associated with them. But now let's move on to a longer list that
Okay.
doesn't involve Laurie Maddox and Sable Starr.
Speed run it.
Okay, Elvis Presley. He was 24
yeah.
when he met Priscilla. She was 14.
Yeah.
10 years.
And again, the biggest artist in the world, there's a degree of manipulation that happened there. You can't have Elvis
Argue that,
Presley
yeah.
in your bedroom and not have that be a factor. Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. This is pretty hardcore, but he's now recently, in recent years, this person has come forward and has laid charges of sexual assault against him. But when this girl was 16 years old, he managed to convince her parents to sign over guardianship of her to him.
Okay.
So that
That's
she could
worse
come.
than I thought. Aerosmith.
So
okay.
that she could come with him on tour, and then I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
But it gets so much worse. It gets so much worse from there. It just gets so much worse. Michael Jackson, we've already spoken about.
Yeah.
If you think Michael Jackson didn't abuse kids, I'm sorry, but get with the program. Just get with the program. You cannot honestly tell me at this point, with all the evidence, go look at the evidence, and then you come tell me that there's
we'll
no
link
truth
the
to it.
video and the doc.
Just
documentary.
go jump in a lake if you want to try to defend Michael Jackson at this point in time. R. Kelly, no defending him. No defending him. Just put it on the list. Ted Nugent. I don't really know Ted
Oh,
Nugent.
I know the name, but what
but
is he?
you know the name of Ted Nugent. He's an artist.
What would I
Has
know?
a song about. I don't know if I should actually say this. But you know what?
By the way,
because
wait,
I
hold
wrote
on.
in my notes here,
I'm
I say,
clapping.
do not look into this in all caps. Wrote a song about having sexual intercourse with a 13-year-old. And in the song also sings about how he tries to convince a police officer to do the same thing to get him off the crime. And that is a song. That is the content
Yeah.
of a song. But it doesn't stop there. He's got a lot of
I don't
issues.
know how many streams that has as well.
What's her
That's-
name? The Courtney
Because
Love.
I'm saying that's crazy. Imagine you're listening to that song in the car, and then
Look into Ted Nugent if you want more. Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm sorry to say.
oh no, I'm gonna tell my sister that
There
she's
is
gonna
a song
hate that.
about there is a song about Catholic schoolgirls, and not in the way that what's his name?
In the way that all Catholic schoolgirls are written up.
But Anthony Kiedis, the song is about a relationship he had with a 14-year-old girl, and he found out when he found out she was 14, went ahead and just did it one more time because she had already consented. Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones. I'm not sure where, but also if
We're
we
just
just go and talk
getting all
about
the,
the
like-
Rolling Stones, there's a lot
Any
of
3-word band that starts with the, or 3 or 4 words, I feel like it's just gone.
But yeah, Bill Wyman, also not great. But again, there's all sorts of issues with the Rolling Stones and underage girls.
not.
Marvin Gaye,
yes.
one of the name associated with the Motown era, had an affair with his wife's 15-year-old niece. Tupac, I've just written all caps here. Do not look into this. Tupac was convicted of a crime.
What crime?
And I don't. Even if this isn't associated with, I don't know if I should.
I need to Google this now.
But,
I need to know this.
look,
I don't know.
It really ain't pretty, and I'm just going to leave it there. But he did a horrible thing, and he was convicted for it. Chuck Berry trafficked a 14-year-old girl over state lines for prostitution. And Don Henley, this is a big sad for me. This one's a big sad because, again, top 5 bands of all time, the Eagles, no question. Don Henley is dead now. But he was, police responded to a call and they caught him on a bunch of drugs with a 14 and 15-year-old girl at his place. And in bad circumstances. And I think I think he got a fine for it, which totaled to $2,500 or something.
Oh,
at
whatever,
the time.
like a bit of some cash to
biggest
you,
band
the biggest
in the
band.
world. Yeah, at the time,
Definitely.
biggest band in the world. Swept under the carpet. And that's all the musicians I have. Last one's Tiger. I don't know who the hell Tiger
I do
is.
know who that is.
But I have to mention that one of the Jenners, Kylie Jenner maybe.
Oh,
I think
okay,
she was,
Jenner.
I
Sorry,
think
I
she
was
was
like, you were
15
saying
I think
Jenner
I think she was 15 and
Yeah,
he
it
was
is
like
Kylie.
24, something like that. And Kanye West is on record as saying, "Yo, you got to get in early." So
Yeah, he's
not
got
great.
he's got a
so that's why I put down Tiger, because of the Kanye stating openly, you got to get in early with regards to Kylie Jenner, which is just abhorrent. And then last one, this isn't a musician, but I feel like we don't talk about it enough. Woody Allen adopted.
talk about it enough. I feel like we talk about it a lot.
Well, we don't talk about it enough because his
Okay.
movies are so popular, and it's like whenever people mention Woody Allen, they don't say Woody Allen that that absolute
I can
human
say that
walking
I've
pile
been
of garbage.
anytime anybody's talked to me about Woody Allen, they say that. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
Happy
yeah,
to be-
he
happy to be around people who do that then.
adopted a girl and then married her.
yeah.
Not great.
not
Not great.
rough.
That's heavily abusive and manipulative.
Again, just saying
Yeah.
one thing. One woman
So that's all
on
of
this
them.
list.
That's all I have.
There's only one woman on this list. Happy
Yeah.
about that. Proud about
And again,
that.
I don't even. I didn't. I should have written.
No, there are
So
a
sorry,
few,
that was
but-
quite a lot for the listeners.
No,
I'm sorry
I
to
mean-
have ruined all of that for you, but it's actually like I say, this comes up sometimes in conversation, but it's
Not like
it's something that I'm very aware of and that I do carry with me. So it's good to have had the opportunity to just lay all of that down in one go. That the extent of the issue, and it's like you can make all sorts of justifications until the cows come home. We look back and we can say that wasn't okay. What happened? That was just not okay.
It's also kind of just like making yourself aware. Then you make the choice: am I willing to listen and support or not? But like, at least you know.
Yeah.
Now you know.
Yeah.
Now you know.
Yeah, now you know. But anybody who's listening who's a survivor, your struggles are valid. What you've been through doesn't define you as a person, even though it feels like it does. And you know, if you have been in these situations, you need to talk to people about it. Professionals preferably, but if you can't afford that, you need to find anybody in your life. And if people don't listen to you, that doesn't invalidate your struggle. You just need to find the right people to talk to us about it. But you do need to talk about it, especially if you've been triggered by the conversations that we've had here. Abuse is an unfortunate fact of our society and life. And while we do everything that we can to prevent it as much as we can, like I'm sure as women you've been trained since birth on how to prevent it, and men, you know, bless society, you do as much as we can to try and prevent them from doing it. It's obviously that there is more to this situation. So it's a reality out there. But if it has happened to you, and if you know, especially if you're being triggered by this, please do reach out to somebody and get support for it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the episode. We will see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Can you click?